In a sprawling urban square, bathed in the neon glow of stage lights and buzzing with the raw energy of thousands of impassioned supporters, the atmosphere was electric, almost cinematic in its intensity. Amidst a sea of waving banners emblazoned with slogans reminiscent of old-school American optimism and modern political fervor alike, one particular night would etch itself into the collective memory of the crowd and later into the annals of political discourse. Before we dive deeper into this tale, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know where you're tuning in from, and if stories like this resonate with you, consider subscribing to our channel. Tomorrow we have another special narrative waiting just for you. At the heart of this charged evening was a political rally orchestrated by none other than the elder statesman Winston McAllister, a formidable figure whose storied past in the political arena had left indelible marks on American history. Yet, as the cameras swept across the stage and the roar of the crowd crescendoed, an unexpected figure slowly emerged from the shadows of the family section. Standing tall and resolute was an 18-year-old young man, Barron, whose presence had always been quiet and reserved, almost as if he had been patiently waiting for this very moment. Barron's eyes, usually guarded and introspective, now gleamed with an unmistakable spark of determination. Though he had spent much of his life out of the glaring spotlight of public opinion, tonight's unfolding events demanded that he step forward. The crowd, accustomed to the bombast of seasoned politicians and the bravado of celebrity endorsements, suddenly found themselves riveted by the unexpected calm and collected aura of this young man. It was as if time itself had paused to watch him prepare to reshape the narrative of an evening that promised nothing less than a transformation of perceptions. Backstage, just beyond the periphery of the stage's blinding lights, a tight-knit cluster of journalists from various major networks huddled together. At their helm was Veronica Steele, a veteran reporter whose reputation for incisive questioning had become almost legendary in the world of political journalism. Known for her acerbic wit and a relentless pursuit of truth, Veronica had made a career out of grilling prominent figures, and tonight she believed she was on the verge of cornering yet another member of a powerful dynasty. With a glimmer of anticipation dancing in her eyes, she murmured to her colleagues, "The golden prodigy won't slip up tonight. Let's see if he can handle our questions." The evening's program had unfolded according to plan. Key speakers had come and gone, each stirring the passions of the crowd with well-rehearsed platitudes and bold promises. But now, as the main act, the anticipated address from Winston McAllister, was moments away from commencing, a calculated shift in focus was underway. The reporters had deliberately chosen this juncture to press a point that had simmered beneath the surface for far too long. The allegations of division and opportunism that had dogged Winston McAllister's career. And, as fate would have it, Barron, the once overlooked scion, had become their prime target. In the midst of the palpable tension, a reporter from a prominent news outlet broke the silence with a voice that cut through the hum of the crowd like a scalpel. "Barron, could you share your thoughts on your father being accused of exploiting his influence for political gain? Do you believe these criticisms are justified?" The question, heavy with implication, hung in the air like an overripe fruit waiting to fall. Cameras pivoted with practiced precision, zooming in on the young man whose every expression now seemed to carry the weight of his entire family's legacy. For a brief moment, the arena was overcome by a pregnant silence. Conversations stilled, and the expectation of a blunder, or perhaps an ill-timed retort, seemed to grip every onlooker. Some faces reflected pure curiosity, while others bore expressions of guarded anticipation. A few even wore the look of skeptics, half expecting Barron to crumble under the pressure. But what followed defied every expectation. Taking a measured breath, Barron stepped forward slowly, his demeanor unruffled by the intensity of the moment. He casually slid his hands into the pockets of his tailored jacket, a small, knowing smile curving his lips. With eyes that shone like a pair of clear headlights in the darkness, he met Veronica Steele's gaze, a silent challenge passing between them. It was evident that he had anticipated this trap long before the first question was even posed. With a voice that resonated confidently throughout the hall, Barron began. "You're asking if I understand politics, or if I'm just benefiting from a family name. I believe the more important question is, should a person be defined solely by their birth or the legacy they inherit?" His words were not a mere evasion. They were a deliberate redirection, a reframing of the entire debate. The hall, once charged with tension, now pulsed with a new kind of energy as the audience leaned forward in rapt attention. Veronica Steele, momentarily taken aback by the candor of his reply, pressed on. "But Barron, many argue that your family's influence has only deepened the divides in our society. How do you respond to those who say that your father's leadership has prioritized power over the well-being of the American people?" Her tone was measured but laced with a challenging edge, as though she expected him to hesitate or even falter. The young man paused, allowing the weight of her inquiry to settle before he continued. "I stand here not as a mere product of privilege, but as someone who has listened to the voices of those who work long hours, who struggle to keep their families afloat, and who believe that our differences need not be weapons against one another." As he spoke, his eyes swept across the crowd, taking in the diverse faces of supporters, skeptics, and everyday citizens whose lives were interwoven with the fabric of American society. "I have seen the tireless dedication of the factory worker, the quiet courage of single parents, and the resolve of veterans returning from conflicts whose scars run deeper than what the eye can see." In that moment, Barron's words transcended the confines of a typical political soundbite. They became a heartfelt appeal, a call for empathy, for genuine dialogue, and for the recognition that America's strength lay not in uniformity of thought, but in the courage to embrace diversity in opinion. His tone carried the calm authority of someone who had navigated personal battles of his own, a subtle hint of an inner journey marked by moments of doubt, resilience, and eventual self-realization. Amid the murmurs of the audience, a ripple of amusement and unexpected camaraderie spread as Barron injected a touch of light-hearted humor into his otherwise serious address. "Now, if you had told me a few years ago that I'd be on stage at a moment like this, addressing a room full of Americans with a passion rivaling that of a Super Bowl halftime show, I might have replied, well, I guess even a rookie can learn a few plays from the old pros." A smattering of laughter emerged from the crowd, a reminder that even in the throes of political tension, there was room for a smile, for a shared moment of levity that underscored the human element in every debate. As another reporter interjected with a question that cut sharper than a freshly honed blade, "Do you really believe that listening to those with opposing views can heal a divided nation? Or is that just an idealistic notion?" Barron's gaze hardened ever so slightly, not with anger, but with the quiet conviction of someone who had long wrestled with the complexities of identity and belonging. "Listen," he said slowly, "America isn't built on the idea that everyone must agree. Our differences are what have spurred innovation, art, and progress. Think about it. If every American agreed on everything, we'd probably be stuck watching the same reruns on cable instead of pioneering new ideas. We're a nation that thrives on debate, on the clash of perspectives, but that clash should never devolve into hostility. It should be the catalyst for understanding, not division." Veronica Steele's eyes narrowed as she considered his measured response. For a reporter who had built her career by exploiting every misstep, Barron's calm and thoughtful demeanor was both disarming and infuriating. Yet even as she prepared another pointed question, the energy in the room shifted again. The murmurs of the audience swelled into a rising tide of support, as if every word Barron spoke was a rallying cry for a better, more inclusive discourse. A brief pause ensued, a silence heavy with introspection. Then, in a seamless transition, Barron turned his attention to a pair of ordinary Americans seated in the front row, a middle-aged couple whose faces bore the marks of hardship but also an unyielding determination. "Look at these two," he said, gesturing toward them with a subtle elegance. "They represent the countless individuals who put in long, grueling hours, who weather every storm with resilience and hope. They are the real backbone of our country. It's for them, and for every person who believes in the promise of America, that we must rise above petty politics." At that moment, a solitary hand clapped, a lone, brave note that quickly sparked an avalanche of applause. The sound cascaded over the hall, drowning out even the most fervent of political slogans. In that echo of collective approval, it became clear that Barron had accomplished something extraordinary. He had transformed a potential media spectacle into a profound conversation about unity, about the values that truly define a nation. Backstage, Winston McAllister watched with quiet pride as his son effortlessly commanded the stage. He knew the treacherous waters of political battles all too well, a world where a single misstep could be magnified into an insurmountable scandal. But tonight, without any overt intervention, Barron had demonstrated that genuine leadership could emerge from the unlikeliest of sources. It was a lesson in humility, resilience, and the power of listening, one that resonated deeply with everyone present. As the applause continued to build and fill the space with an almost tangible warmth, another journalist ventured a final pointed query. "Barron, if your family's legacy is defined by division, how can you claim that true unity is within reach?" The question was a familiar refrain, a trap laid with all the precision of a well-rehearsed script. But this time, instead of succumbing to the pressure, Barron's expression softened with a mixture of sadness and hope. "I won't deny that there are wounds in our society that run deep," he acknowledged, his voice unwavering. "But I truly believe that every argument we have, every debate that sometimes feels like it's tearing us apart, is also an opportunity to listen, to learn, and to grow stronger together." Drawing a deep breath, he continued, "In the tapestry of our nation, every thread matters, from the blue-collar workers hustling day in and day out, to the creative souls who paint our culture with vibrant strokes of art and music. I've learned from the stories of people who have struggled just as I have, and I've come to understand that our challenges do not define us, they refine us." His words, laden with empathy and conviction, rippled through the audience like a soothing balm. If we continue to let our differences become a battleground, then it is all of us who will pay the price. But if we choose to have conversations that matter, conversations that elevate understanding over animosity, then we can rebuild what has been broken. As his speech reached its crescendo, the hall seemed to transform. What had begun as a planned media ambush had turned into an impromptu masterclass in diplomacy and humanity. The young man's sincerity shone through, not as a political tactic, but as an earnest appeal for a future where dialogue triumphs over division. In a moment that felt as timeless as it was fleeting, Barron's voice echoed across the space. "We are not defined by our disagreements, but by our shared capacity to listen and learn. Let this be the start of a conversation that brings us together, rather than tearing us apart." A second wave of applause surged through the crowd, more robust and heartfelt than the first. Even the most skeptical of onlookers couldn't help but be moved by the raw authenticity in his words. Veronica Steele, the once unflinching reporter, found herself momentarily at a loss for a rebuttal. Her carefully honed script had been dismantled by a young man who refused to play by the conventional rules of political combat. In the lingering aftermath of his address, as the audience continued to buzz with excitement and reflection, Barron slowly stepped back from the stage. His eyes met those of Veronica Steele one last time, a silent acknowledgement that the conversation was far from over, that the true battle lay not in the arena of public opinion, but in the everyday act of listening to one another. Even as he yielded the floor to the next speaker, the message he had delivered resonated like a clarion call. Outside the hall, within minutes of the broadcast going live, social media platforms exploded with discussions, debates, and heartfelt tributes to the young man who had dared to challenge the prevailing narratives. Memes, video clips, and thoughtful commentaries spread like wildfire, a digital echo of the powerful moment that had unfolded on stage. The nation was left to ponder. If an 18-year-old could articulate such profound truths about unity, empathy, and the American spirit, what then might be possible if we all embraced the art of genuine conversation? Later that night, as the crowd slowly dispersed into the cool embrace of a starlit sky, many found themselves reflecting on the deeper implications of what they had witnessed. The rally, originally billed as a mere political spectacle, had morphed into a symbolic crossroads, a moment where age, privilege, and experience converged to remind everyone that politics, at its best, is not about wielding power over others, but about empowering each other. In casual conversations over cups of coffee at 24-hour diners, in heartfelt exchanges on front porches across small towns and big cities alike, people revisited Barron's words. It's like he reminded us that America isn't just a country, it's a tapestry of stories, one diner remarked, echoing the sentiment that had taken root in hearts that night. Others compared his calm resolve to that of beloved cultural icons. Think of the cool confidence of a classic film hero, or the understated brilliance of a jazz soloist improvising under pressure. Yet, the story was not meant to end with a single night of political theatrics. Rather, it was the spark that set in motion a renewed national conversation about the true meaning of leadership, privilege, and unity. In subsequent weeks, community forums, town halls, and even online discussions flourished with passionate debates about how best to bridge the divides that had so long characterized American society. Barron's message, that dialogue, empathy, and the willingness to listen were the true foundations of progress, became a mantra for those yearning for a fresh start. It was in these diverse exchanges that the legacy of that unforgettable evening began to crystallize. Local leaders recalled how, in a moment when it seemed as though the relentless onslaught of media scrutiny would have overwhelmed a young man unaccustomed to the brutal lights of publicity, Barron instead had shown a maturity that belied his years. He reminded us that sometimes the simplest act of genuine conversation can be more powerful than any political maneuver, a community organizer later said at a forum in a small Midwestern town. Even as political pundits and media analysts dissected every nuance of his performance, a subtler narrative emerged, one that transcended the partisan divides. Across cable news networks and social media feeds, voices from all sides began to echo a common refrain, an acknowledgement that in a nation as diverse as America, the ability to listen, learn, and empathize might just be the key to overcoming entrenched divisions. In homes where debates had often turned bitter and divisive, Barron's words served as a gentle reminder that even the most deeply held beliefs could evolve when met with respect and openness. In one particularly memorable online video that rapidly amassed millions of views, a young college student paraphrased Barron's message with a blend of youthful enthusiasm and a nod to contemporary pop culture. It's like when you're watching your favorite Netflix series and the plot twists make you think, wait, there's more to this story than I realized. That's what he did for our country. He turned a planned ambush into a season finale moment, one where we all got to be part of the story instead of just spectators. As the nation moved forward, the ripple effects of that night were felt in ways both profound and unexpected. Political rallies began to feature more moments dedicated to open dialogue rather than divisive rhetoric. School classrooms introduced modules on civic engagement that drew inspiration from Barron's eloquent defense of listening over lashing out. Even the realm of art and music saw a resurgence in creative expressions that celebrated diversity of thought, with local bands and poets dedicating songs and verses to the idea that unity can be found in the midst of disagreement. For Winston McAllister, witnessing his son command not only the stage, but also the hearts and minds of an entire generation was a moment of quiet triumph. He understood all too well that the world of politics was fraught with pitfalls, and that the glare of public scrutiny could reduce even the strongest individuals to shadows of their true selves. Yet, in Barron's measured tone and heartfelt words, he saw a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the most polarized times, sincerity and human connection remained the most potent forces for change. As the night drew to a close and the last echoes of applause faded into the cool night air, one truth stood out: that political discourse, when stripped of its caustic edge and infused with genuine empathy, could transcend the confines of partisanship and speak directly to the soul of a nation. Barron had not merely deflected a barrage of probing questions, he had redefined what it meant to be a young leader in a divided era, one who believed that even the simplest act of listening could be revolutionary. In the days and weeks that followed, as pundits and citizens alike mulled over the significance of that transformative moment, one question resonated universally: what will America do next? The answer, as many came to realize, was not to be found in the bombastic claims of political elites, but in the quiet determination of everyday citizens. It lay in the willingness to pause, to set aside entrenched differences, and to engage in honest, sometimes imperfect, but ultimately healing conversations. And so, as the nation embarked on a journey toward a more inclusive future, Barron's words became a rallying cry, a gentle reminder that true strength is measured not by the volume of one's voice, but by the courage to listen. "We have the right to disagree," he had declared that unforgettable night. "But let that right never be used as a weapon against one another. Instead, let it be the catalyst for understanding, for growth, and for the enduring spirit that makes this country truly great." In every bustling diner, in every small-town community center, and across the vast digital landscape of social media, his message continued to echo. It was a call for unity amid diversity, for dialogue in a world too often divided by ideology, and for the recognition that each conversation, no matter how small, could be the first step toward a brighter, more empathetic tomorrow. So, as you sit and reflect on this story, ask yourself, when was the last time you truly listened to someone with an opposing view? Not to argue, not to prove yourself right, but simply to understand. Perhaps in that moment of quiet understanding, you might just find that the path forward, one paved with hope, resilience, and genuine human connection, is one that we can all walk together. Thank you for being part of this conversation. Remember, every shared thought, every respectful dialogue, every willingness to listen builds a future where our differences become the very threads that weave the rich tapestry of America. Let this be the moment we choose unity over division, empathy over indifference, and conversation over conflict. Stay true to your beliefs, but never forget to listen, because in those moments of genuine dialogue, we find not just the path forward, but the very heart of what it means to be American.